Hey everyone, I'm Jan Erickson with Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for the 5th day of February 2020. Well, I started this and I don't know. I don't know. I blanked out in the middle of the reading. So I had just gotten started in it too. I just done the astrology and all of that. So I'm going to quickly go over that. And I'm not going to redo the cards because I like this reading. And because it's talking about how we express authority in the direction that we take in life when we're reestablishing structure and security and all of that, and how authority impacts all of that. So since that's something that we're dealing with, unfortunately, right now, collectively, and unfortunately, some of us in our personal lives, I would say I'm just going to leave this reading as it is and just quickly go over the astrology, and then we'll go back to it, and I'll show you what it is. Moon's in the third house of Gemini. We've got communication again. Seek out others, though, to develop new ideas, maybe. Sun's in the 11th house in Aquarius. Unconventional relationships, you might find those supportive today. A semi-square with Chiron, though, may find it that it's easier to withdraw from situations when self-expression is hindered, or if you feel inhibited somehow. And that's a matter of perception, because sometimes we think other people are doing stuff to us, and in fact they're not. It's simply our own reactions to things, our own perceptions getting in the way. So be sure there before you open your mouth and say something you might regret. Check your biorhythm chart and see if maybe intellect is low or emotion is low or something else is low that could be impacting things, and just let it pass. Just look at it as a wave and let it pass. Just observe it and just go, okay. Because if it's really something to deal with, you'll know, and you will. So Venus, 11th house, also in Pisces, along with Mercury. Emotional balance may be difficult for you today if you feel stressed, so retreat if needed. Mars in the 8th house of Sagittarius. Now, this surrounds issues of shared resource, including business, insurance policies, bank accounts, sex and sexuality, partnership, anything that affects people personally in a shared way. There's some energy surrounding that today to deal with anything that might need taken care of. Jupiter, 10th house Capricorn, as is Saturn. So we've got Mercury and Venus in the same house and sign, and we also have, Mars is in its own thing, but Jupiter and Saturn are both in the 10th house in Capricorn. So with Jupiter, we're looking at security and well-being found through career choice, but one that allows for both advancement and sort of a personal approach to it, but also one that you can derive meaning, because if you're not happy with what you're doing, you're going to get real bored and it's going to be stressful. So make sure that you have a job that allows for both. Saturn in the 10th house in Capricorn, you're going to be reassessing the important areas of your life, including career, and advancement, again, could be possible. And we've been talking a lot about that lately. Conjunct Pluto, though, things that were once stable are now in flux. And you might be able to use that energy to let go of things that aren't working anymore and move on to something more positive. So just because, things might be a little chaotic, you're unsure, it could mean that a door is opening. So take advantage of it if it does. Uranus is still in first house and Taurus, but the most important thing is the aspect with Neptune. We have a semi-square there, and we're going to guard against deception or the long-played con. And we've been dealing with that lately, haven't we? For a long, long time. It's hard, especially when you realize that you're being conned and that lies are being told. It's very difficult. So you want to go within and allow intuition and higher self to guide here, because the noise just may be too much for you to even discern what's real and what isn't. But you know when something is wrong. When someone's lying to you, You may not want to admit it. You may not want to accept it. It might be a difficult thing to have to know, but So just know it and deal with it accordingly. If somebody's conning you, then get away from them. If you're in a position where you're supporting them in some way, you're aligning with them somehow in a group or whatever, get away from them, because you're being deceived. What good is it if you're being deceived, right? And I think that that's something, this semi-square between Uranus and Neptune's been going on for a while now. And I think it's just alerting us that there's a con game at work. And there has been for some time. Now, when I drew the cards, I drew first the Emperor, fourth card of the major arcana. Again, structure, foundation, authority, how we express authority. I then drew the Knight of Pentacles, having to do with security and home and, maybe looking for something new. On that horizon, Knights are passionate. They're about movement. You've got the Page, which is more the student and undeveloped potential, and they're still learning. The Knight's going to be a little bit older, and they're going to be a little more in charge of where they're going. Even if they're working for the king, they're still out there. They have a certain level of authority over others that the Page is not going to have. And then I drew the seventh card of the major arcana, the Chariot. Now, what I started to say, and then I got confused, is that this is really a yod situation. I found this. I did an astrology thing for one of the tarot readings, and I noticed that there was a yod in the sky, and I may have commented it. It's been a while ago, so I don't know if I did, but at least it was in my head. And the cards I drew, it was the yod. So I thought, oh my God. So I had to talk about it from that standpoint. And since then, I've just been doing that. A yod is basically a skewed triangle. You have the tip is the focal point. The other 2 points, they get along with one another. They're in sextile with one another. They don't understand the focal point, but they influence it. And so you can either, and I do it either that way, either where the 2 are influencing the 1, or maybe if I just have a single card that obviously looks like the significator, maybe it's a major card, maybe it's not, but clearly it's controlling things, or it's the focal point. So maybe I'll have one influencer and 2 focal points that's having an influence on 2 things that are happening. Maybe the 2 things involve a choice we're making. So you see how that goes. So that's what I'm going to do today, only I'm going to do it in the traditional fashion, and we're going to have the Knight of Pentacles be the focal point. So let's talk about the Knight first. Now, again, Pentacles is about the earth element, and I'm going to go over here to this so that I don't miss anything. No. So with the earth element, you're talking about a guy that's practical. He's going to take care of business. If he has responsibilities, he's going to take care of them. And he's kind of standing there on the precipice of something new. You can see here, it's a precipice. You kind of see something that's maybe that's water, even though it's not blue. Or because these are the rolling hills behind. Maybe there's a mountain over there, or well over here. But it looks like he's standing on the precipice, looking out over the expanse, looking out over his charge, basically. So he could be someone that the king has sent out to just oversee certain villages, maybe, or to go out and maybe help them with something. So we kind of view knights in a way that are helpful, and although they might not be. Knights Templar were either or, basically. They started the banking system, basically, in the world, and from that it transferred to Rome. It was sort of integral there. But basically, when we talk then about the Emperor and the Chariot, we're looking at soul-level archetype cards. And so these are fundamental things within us that we're going to have to figure out when we come into form, that our soul is going to have to guide us on, which, typically we just forget that we're soul, and we become ego, and there we go. That's all we do. And then we have an emperor who's out of control and can't figure out how to be the ruler and how to be the person in authority, right? Here we see all the oranges and the reds denoting the fire element. So we see the will is very strong in the emperor. We see a sense of wholeness and unity with that circle there above the scepter there that he's holding on the tip there. But at the same time, you wonder whose wholeness and whose unity with him. You know, is it with respect to everyone else in the collective, or is it just him? Because typically this is a centered energy focused on him alone. It's a very patriarchal card in that regard. We see rubies up there on his crown, and we see his throne adorned with ram's heads. So there's a very strong card of Aries here, felt, or the strength of Aries is found in this card, I should say. But it is a card of Aries. So whereas you might imply the notion of Pentacles here, because generally speaking, the emperor, the king, is going to be someone who's going to rule over the land, and that would be Pentacles. At the same time, again, it's really the queen that determines just how compassionate that experience is. Because if she's out there in left field, boy, it's anyone's guess what's going to happen in that kingdom. But here we come in with the 7. And the 7 in the Chariot is about balance. It's balancing shadow side of self with spirit, about knowing when to allow and when to control. Now, in this representation, in the Morgan Greer now, let's see, where is it? I'm going to show you the difference here. I think that I had it in the monthly tarot reading, maybe. Let's see if it's just real. Let me see where it might be. It might be right up on top here. But they show the Chariot in a little bit different way. It shows the king who's actually, oh, here it is, who's actually taking hold of the reins. And here in the Rider-Waite, that's not what's happening. You see, he in the Morgan Greer, instead of the sphinxes, the lions down there, the sphinxes, instead of that, we're looking at horses, and he's got a hold of the reins, doesn't he? But he's balancing. You can see the scepter is different there. You see a moon on it, don't you? Than what you see here in this card, but it's very similar. You know, it's a very similar type of scepter. But with the moon, it's showing mystery. It's also showing emotion or the receptive presence. And that it's stuck in his belt. He's allowing for that, and it's portrayed prominently, right? It's allowing for that possibility with him, that he could let go and just allow. So you see, depending upon the type of deck that you're using, you know, some of these cards can maybe mean something else. But at the same time, here we have, you see again the familiar theme in tarot. You've got the town evenly in back of him. You see the 2 wheels, and he sits between them, doesn't he, in the Chariot? You see the dreidel on the shield with the winged sun above it, denoting healing and balance. The dreidel isn't turned over, so it's denoting balance. And he's really balancing the strength of his kingdom, basically his kingliness, his kingship, with the emotion and intuition and allowing aspects of the moon. And also with the star, because you see stars all over the fabric there above his head there, and behind him as well. You see Merkabahs. In a sense, then, this would be his soul vehicle. If you look at him as the soul, you see triple aspects on his shoulders. You see both crescent moons, but then his collar is almost a third. You see a cube on his breastplate for structure. And you would have the 7 depicted there, 4, and then the 3 would be 7. So you'd have 4 and then the 3 as 7. Let's see if we can see something on that belt. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No. But the sphinxes are sitting down there, you know, they're just hanging around. They're not, you know, whereas in this one, you know, they're ready to go. Well, if we turn them right, they're ready to go, aren't they? They're galloping into something. But in the Rider Waite, we're really talking about balancing spirit with the shadow side of self or with ego, and learning when to take the reins and when and control the situation, when you need to assert yourself and when you need to just sit back and observe. Uh, it's a great card for empaths because we have to learn that, don't we? Where we're having to learn how to, when it's time to observe the situation, to step out of the fray. I think that I did this and I did it badly on one of the readings, but what I did was no, you know what I did it on? I think I did it on the Elder Futhark post or video that I did for Patreon. Yeah, first it was the first one in a 3-part series. I did the first 8. They break it down into 3 groups, just like they do with tarot. But what I did was I drew a terrible rendition of the scale, so I'm going to do it this way. And 1, 2, 3 is on one side, the 4 is in the center, and then 5, 6, 7. And what I did was I put a 4 up at the top, and I went 4, 5, 6 on the other side instead of 5, 6, 7. But anyway, that's what you're looking at. And basically, what we're talking about with the Chariot is taking the position 4, letting things come to balance, and then deciding where you go from there, what it is that the situation requires. Does it require a heavy hand or a heavier hand, or does it require something that is maybe a lighter touch? And that's, maybe you do nothing about something versus getting involved. I mean, it can be, those are the ends of the continuum. And then what does that look like ultimately in how you express either end of it? You may choose to say nothing when someone clearly is out of control, and you know that this is just a moment and it's not going to be that way for long. And so maybe you just sit there quietly and you don't say anything. You don't take the bait. You don't let your will get going and maybe respond with something that is responding to something that's momentary, and that the person is likely going to feel really, really bad about afterwards, and they're going to feel horrible. So it's like, don't rub it in, right? And that's what happens when you observe the 7 experience and you take that position 4. Because then the direction, that's really, in a sense, what he's doing, isn't it? You've got, every time I do this, I always turn a card around wrong. But that's what you've got here, don't you? You've got the Knight in the 4 position trying to balance out, how am I going to deal with this new structure in my life? Am I going to do it? Am I going to observe the possibility that I can just, make that choice to just stand back and do nothing and just be there if needed, or am I going to try to assert myself in a way that maybe is not particularly helpful? Am I going to be able to discern which is which, and will I make the right choice? Because sometimes you've got to get into it. You've got to assert yourself. You've got to be the one that steps in and says, okay, my mother was like that. She was a Taurus, and she was born on the 8th, and so of May, and so therefore, you're looking at somebody, with an 8 energy who's going to be authority. She's going to be someone in authority. She's going to, or at least going to have an authoritative presence to her. So, you would ask her for advice. You would ask her, well, what's the best way forward? And she would give you a reply, this is the practical solution for things. So she wasn't someone, it's not that she couldn't get angry, because she could. But it wasn't, but she took things from a measured standpoint, and she'd think about it, typically before she reacted. And I mean, it wasn't always the case, but for the most part, that's exactly what she did. And so, in a sense, my mother's the Knight, and, she's having to put things in perspective, whether you're going to take a more measured approach with the Chariot, or whether you're going to go off, half-cocked with the Emperor and do something you're going to regret later. So anyway, Isa is the rune, the 11th rune of the Elder Futhark, again, master number for illumination and enlightenment. But Isa's about alignment. It's about freezing things into place. Again, the 4. We have a 5-day today, so we have a a day for change. Collectively on the month, though, and the day, we have a 7. So again, it may be a day where when you look at numerology, sometimes you can just, glean something from the day itself. Sometimes you have to look at the whole thing, the month, the day, and the year. But see, the year is a 22, and that's the cosmic builder. It's the most powerful master number we have. And so we aren't going to reduce that to 4. But it is a soul level cosmic building experience, right? So we are going to manifest something this year soul wise that hopefully will bring us in a better alignment with one another. See, a better Isa, a sense of Isa with one another. But Isa can freeze things into place. It's basically contracting the will to a still point before you then, do something else. Again, it's achieving that 4 position, allowing things to settle before you make a decision, bringing the receptive and projective presence into balance before you then express authority, before the night expresses authority. Let's see we're doing really good on time today. I don't think we need a 4th card, but I think some of this may have to do with the whole notion of the conjunct between Saturn and Pluto. Things that were once stable are now in flux. And so maybe you have a chance to reassess. Again, we have Saturn in Capricorn, where we're reassessing the important areas of our lives. So I have a feeling that this particular reading is probably dealing with the Saturn information in today's astrology. So let's see. Apologize for the light here, but I can't see where everything goes. Just this one. Oh, that's fine. Oh, is this Rubeus? Let me see. What did I do with that? Oh, there it is. This is either Rubeus or it's Rubeus. Okay. Rubeus and Albus are, and when I'm looking at it in terms of, see what I have here and what I'm having to discern in the dark is something that looks like this. Can you see that? So I'm looking at a series of dots on runes that are somewhat dark. I'm going to figure out what the heck that is. But it looked like Rubeus, and I looked at my cheat sheet, and yes, it is. It's Rubeus. So what we're talking about there is, well, that's not going to fit in there. I'll put that back over there. What we're talking about with Rubeus, and I'll draw it out for you. Rubeus is one of those with like Cata Draconis and Carcer, where geomancers of old, and I tell this every time whenever I draw either of the 3, is that if you draw this the first time out, because generally when you're making up a shield chart that looks like this, what you're doing is you're drawing these first 4, you're throwing them down, and you're creating these first 4, and from there, each line then let's see, the top line creates this one, the second row creates this one, the third row creates this one, and the fourth row creates this one. Well, you can't see it very well, but that's what it does. And then from there, these 2 combine together to make this and on. And then these 2 combine to make this one, these 2 to make this one, and these 2 to make this one. And so, but basically when you draw this first, and it's read from right to left, not left to right, to make things more simple, right? But anyway, when you draw this first one, and this first one this time was Puella, but when you draw it, if it's Carcer or it's Rubeus or it's Cata Draconis, then it's just too evil to continue. You're supposed to destroy the reading and run, waving your hands and everything. I don't know. I think that's just ridiculous, because what if there was something that resolved things in the reading? What if this was alerting you to something you needed to know? I don't understand that. But anyway, I'm not that much of a wussy witch. So, and I don't know that these were magicians that were doing this, and astrologers and stuff, and they were guys. And I don't know. I just don't think the women would have done this way. They wouldn't have approached it this way. But in any event, you've got Rubeus, and Rubeus, unlike Rubeus Hagrid in Harry Potter, I love that she used geomancy names for some of her characters. Albus Dumbledore was the other. Albus there is the opposite of Rubeus. And so whereas Albus is about a wise older person, Rubeus is about that unrestrained passion that gets us into trouble. And it's about karma. It's about all that kind of stuff. But how we really, are our own worst enemy here. And when you're talking about issues of authority and how you're going to express that, we don't want to be our own worst enemy like the guy in the Oval Office is, and then all the people that are supporting him are. You're causing yourself a level of hell that you're not going to be able to undo. You're going to have to rely on the graciousness of others to let you off the hook for stuff like this. Issues of authority are difficult. If you grow up in a household where that is, not either overly done or boundaries are questionable, it's maybe parents just let their kids run amok, or they do the thing that started happening when I started having kids. You had this group of parents, a growing number of parents who decided they needed to be their kid's friend. Abdicating all responsibility for parenting because I'm just going to be their friend. No. That's not how that is. And so again, it's a misuse of authority. It's allowing your passions to be self-centered instead of, thinking about those kids and understanding that they actually need parents to set boundaries for them. They don't know what to do. And so if a child grows up that way, then they tend to express Rubeus in their lives. All right? Because that inner ability to do that has to be guided. All right? It's very unusual for children to be that scattered and then have them be able to be effective adults. So they go on then into their lives. Maybe they get married, they have kids, whatever, but they don't know how to do that. They don't know how to parent. They don't know how to be the best example for their kids. And so consequently, that then can move into their career as well. They don't know how to deal with authority that's above them. They don't know how to express authority if they are that. So you see how we learn to do that happens in childhood. And we learn that by watching our parents and the adults around us. So if we've got a bunch of lunatics, well, it's anyone's guess. Rubeus might be the result. And I think right now you've got unrestrained everything. The norms, the values, all of that collectively in the country are circling the drain because we've got some guy who's unrestrained and the embodiment of Rubeus, and nobody will stop him. And the people that have are being laughed at. It's what happens when Rubeus energy influences how we express authority. The other way that we express authority is whether or not we see truth, or whether or not we are so taken by the con talked about with Uranus semi-square Neptune today. We're so taken in by the con, we can't see anything. And so we might delude ourselves if we're the one with the authority problem. If we're the one that can't seem to express authority in a proper way for others. We believe the con within because that's where it's coming from. It's coming from inside. Or we've got some guy in authority or some woman in authority over us who's expecting us to buy a bunch of crap that keeps that person in authority above us. Because if everybody believed the truth, that person would be fired, right? I mean, some of us have actually experienced this in the workplace. I have. Where you've got a supervisor who is pulling things the boss doesn't know about, kisses his butt, thinks the world of this person, and you know what they're doing. They're stealing the boss blind. Eventually, boss catches on because the boss can't turn a blind eye anymore. And, then you got to sit there and watch the agonizing amount of time it takes to fire the person. Because by now, said individual's got so much on the boss that, so you've been there. If you've experienced that, I've seen it. It was astonishing to watch. Eventually, the person got fired, but it took forever. And the rest of us, it was just agonizing. Because this person was still playing games and causing all of us a bunch of grief. We just wanted to work. We just wanted to get the job done, whatever it was. But we also knew what we were being used for to further this other person's end. That wasn't okay, see. Eventually, it got worked out. But even that process was ridiculous. So we hang on to the rubius, don't we? We hang on to that weird, unrestrained energy when we know it's wrong, but we do it anyway. So in any event, that's what I think that this is about. Now, yesterday was total authority. I don't remember what I had, but total authority reading. And today we're dealing with it again, Whether we're dealing with, our own sovereignty as authority, I don't know. But I think that we need to pay attention to this both individually and collectively here, both what's happening, in case this is also, we're having to deal with this. If we're dealing with it on a personal level where the authority is us, we need to come to balance on it and understand when it's appropriate to take command and allow, and when to allow. Because, it's like, here's the other thing. And I'll put it on the 7 side, this little graphic I did. I had to post it over there on Patreon underneath that video. Here, I did it right. But in terms of business models, if we look at pyramids, because if this is about, if you're getting a new job here, which you could be, or you've moved into a new one, if you put you at the top as the most important person, your staff at the bottom, you will not be as successful unless you do this. Your staff's most important. The people that make you your money. The boss is important, but who the boss hires and then gets out of the way and lets them do their work. You want to hire stars. You want to hire people that can shine. You want to hire people that can basically run your business for you and make your money for you. If you have a heavy hand in on that, it's likely going to suppress any of that from happening. The businesses that seem to do the best are the ones that invert that pyramid. That, sure, the boss is important. There has to be a guiding hand. There has to be someone to set the rules and the tone, and here's the focus of what we're doing. Define all of that, but then hire people that are good and get out of their way and let them do their magic, because they will. This is what business, which is patriarchy based, this is and power based, right? This is what they don't understand. The most successful businesses are the ones that invert that pyramid and understand that it's the staff that make it happen. And so you want to do whatever you can to support the staff, not the other way around. So issues of authority may be involving that for you. If this is a new position you're going into, if that's what this is describing, then understand that you need to conceptually invert the pyramid within your department and be the guiding force, but get out of the way of your people and let them shine. And then the experience is going to be much, much better for everybody. It's going to be better for the company. It's going to be better for the people that you interact with in the world, your customer base, your client base. So in any event, I think that's it. I think we did it. I didn't blank out this time and go, oh God, what was I talking about? Anyway, thanks so much for stopping by. Do check out the blog over there at imsteppingaside.com. There's going to be some links under the video here where you can reach me and other stuff that I'm involved in. You can look at all that stuff too. But But the other thing that's down there below the video and also on the blog is a sign up a little box for the newsletter that I put out. Now, I'm just going to say this, and I'm going to let everybody know who's already subscribing to it. I'm going to, as of next month, make this a every other week newsletter. And that's just during the spring. During the summer, however, that's probably going to go to once a month. And it may stay that way, or I may do more during the winter, in the winter months when I'm a little bit bored and I don't have any gardening to do. And so I may switch it back to that. But for right now, this next month, I'm in March, it's going to go to every other week. It's weekly, every Sunday right now. It's going to switch to every other Sunday. And then probably we'll see how that goes, but maybe in May, I may switch it to once a month at that point. So at least for the summer and during the growing season, because I'm going to have to be out there and not in here. So doing those things. And so sometimes things get a little bit, I'm not here as much. So, but I do this the same, 4 days a week during the summer. I just, this newsletter I've added this year, that's probably going to have to shift a little bit, throughout the year to less amounts and then back again to more often. So in any event, if you want to click subscribe to that and put your email in, it'll go over to this app that I use, this software I use to make my newsletters. And it's stuff that isn't on the blog, really. Well, there's a little bit of sticky stuff that is correspondence-wise. It has to do with witchcraft and herbalism, a little bit of affiliate ads on it, but not much. But mostly it's all about, there's some astrology on it, there's like I said, herbalism, there's a section on rune of the week and tarot card of the week, and just lots of things that you can learn about. So it's more of an educational type of a newsletter. So in any event, if you want to sign up for it, I'd love you to do that, and you'll get that, like I said, right now every Sunday until next month, and then it's every other Sunday, and then it's going to be once a month for a little while. So anyway, thank you so much for stopping by. Click subscribe here. Come back tomorrow and be good to yourself, be good to one another, and blessed be.